everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lococast.net Screencasts. I was going to go over some ZSH stuff with you guys today, but the feedback from the Vim things has been so great that I decided, hey, if it's not broke, let's not fix it. I appreciate all the emails you guys have been sending in, so let's have some more Vim fun. And so for the Vim, the screencast today, what I wanted to kind of go over was something that's probably you guys are all familiar with, but maybe you're not aware of or not thinking about all the places you could use it, and that is visual mode. And so any of you guys using GVim that highlight some text with your mouse, you've got visual mode going on. Notice down here in the bottom left it says you're in visual mode. Now, what's visual mode great for? Well, it's obviously because you can highlight stuff and then, delete it and such. So very handy for that kind of thing. But what it's actually really good for is doing things like find and replace within a limited subset of things. How often do you have a code method or class, but not the whole file, where you need to do a find and replace operation? So, in here, I decided that colons aren't exactly where it's at anymore. I'm going to go through and select this text here, do an S for replace, colons with, let's say, semicolons, and do it globally, do it /G, which means to keep doing it all the way across all the lines. And there we've updated, this block of text. But notice that this colon up here didn't change, this colon didn't change. It only affects the visually selected area. And so a few tricks to go along with that I want to bring up. One is that after I've done that, let's say that I'm working and I need to go back and revisit that block of code. If you hit GV, a lot like how GG will go to the top of the page, GV will actually re-highlight or reselect the last bit of visual selection that you had going. So if I do it now, it just goes back. So very cool for if you doing multiple operations maybe, or maybe you go back and need to do something else. That GV command is very, very handy, so keep that in mind. The other thing I want you guys to think about is, while you can definitely hit V to start a visual selection and start moving line by line, all your movement commands and things are still supported. So, for instance, one of the things you may do is at the front of the line, maybe you want to select visually up until that first paren here. So if we enter visual mode here and then do T left brace or left paren, notice that we get the whole visual block. My favorites are the ones that involve the I command here, where you can do things. Let's go ahead and V, I, and then paren, and it will visually select everything within the parens. I use this all the time, but normally I'm using it like CI paren, which will then let me go through and change this inside here. It works in quotes, so CI quotes, changed. The visual also works with this, so VI quote will select all of this, and then I can do something like just replace within this one string doc with duck, for instance, and now we've got duck utils. So not a very poignant use case or whatever there, but you get the point. That don't forget that all these movement commands that you remember and you know how to use for doing other things, like I'm saying, I always use it for change or deleting text inside of di. Oops, sorry, wrong keystroke there. Di paren. The visual selection also works with that. So let's go ahead and let's just walk through this a little bit here. Here I visually selected this line. When I go to enter command, notice that it actually is doing is it's marking the beginning and the end of the selection and the operations being performed on that range. It's very handy with things. So for instance, I have a tool for use tidy. Tidy will clean up HTML. Notice that this generated HTML file from RST to HTML is kind of a mess. It's not indented or anything. I can actually go through and grab some HTML here. And let's just grab through the end of this paragraph tag here and pipe it through tidy. What I actually do is I have a shortcut, comma, capital T, or leader, capital T. And why is it not working? There we go. So there we go. So now I've basically run that HTML through tidy, and only the HTML that I had selected with my visual mode was selected and replaced and cleaned up. So now I've got, nice and pretty, and I've got indented, and I've got extra new lines and things in here. So very cool, because you can do anything you can basically do with your document. You can limit it to a subset of that using this visual mode selection idea. But what I wanted to bring up is there's also some other very cool use cases for visual mode, because there's a special visual mode that most editors don't have, and this is one of the great things with Vim, and that is column mode. And want to do this and not save my changes. So there. So here's a document I've got that from last episode's, basically my script here, and I've got some column text here. I've got these dashes with those restructured text format for bullet lists, and the colons from the commands and things. And so instead of hitting V and grabbing whole lines, if I do Control V, I can grab just the column, and you can adjust the column using your normal markers and movement. So I'm going to grab this, and let's say I was taking this over from restructured text to let's say, DokuWiki or something, and I needed to change this bullet list into that format. Well, I can actually go through and just change this to be star, and then hit escape, and now I have a space star replaced all of my dashes for the bullet list format. You can also insert things. So let's grab this first line here. And let's say that in front of all this, I wanted to put some kind of comment or something. So Shift-I will put you into insert mode, and you can say, this is a... And there you go. So now I've entered in a bunch of lines of text, all in the same column, with one nice little bit of command. I have to type it once. And where this is really handy, what I really love this is, I don't know how often you guys do any kind of database work or generate SQL scripts. And oftentimes what I'll end up doing is, working on something and generating a .sql file that I can then import into my database. So let's open up, again, I need to say, I definitely want to do this. This is a CSV file of states and state abbreviations that I just downloaded from the web here. And let's say that I'm working on a project that needs a state list drop down. I may want to put these into a state table. And so I'm like, all right, I need to get from this CSV into the database somehow. And might even just need something like a migration script or something, So there's lots of ways to do this. You could definitely open this up in a script and for loop over each line and figure this all out. But I happen to like using my Vim column mode here. So what I'll actually do is I'll Control V, and I'll do capital G to get to the end of the line, end of the file. And this could be 50 lines, it could be 5,000 lines, right? This is just a 50 handy, sample use case here. Shift-I to insert like I was doing before. And now let's write out our query. So let's insert into state. What are our columns? Let's say state name, state abbrev values, and then hit escape. So I've got the start here. I mean, notice that each one of these queries is not going to be valid because it needs a closing paren and it needs a semicolon so that these work. However, that's really easy to get by because I can just replace in this whole document, replace end of lines with paren, semicolon, and a replacement end of line. And I don't need to do it with a G because there's only one. And voila. So how's that? 2 quick Vim commands, and this 50 lines of text has just turned into SQL statements that now I can use to work on something. Oftentimes, this CSV can come from anywhere. It can work from like a dump. Maybe you did a query before that you dumped out some kind of values out. Maybe someone hands you a CSV file and like, hey, we need to go through and clean this up. And then don't forget that you can do column mode for other things. So for instance, let's say that, states is the wrong name. Let's replace this with state list. And boom, here I have a whole column list. And so I find I use column mode a ton when dealing with any kind of like SQL inserts. And it's amazingly powerful for that. And I get this is one of those editor tricks where it's like, I don't know why you would use any other editor. I mean, I don't know other editors you can just do this kind of stuff with. So very kind of cool to see and to kind of play with. And you can also, obviously you can do your searches limited within here. So for instance, let's go ahead and grab just from here to the end of the line, all the way down the file. So now I want to do a find and replace just within here. I may have a case where I need to replace maybe double quotes it doesn't like in my database, so I actually want to do is replace them with single quotes. So there you go, find and replace. Now if there are any single quotes anywhere else in these lines, it was just limited to this one subset here at the end of the line that I had actually column grabbed out with the visual selection tool. So very, very kind of cool and handy. I want to show you guys just a couple of, there's some plugins that help with these kind of things. This one, Extended Visual Mode Command Substitutes and Searches, is a plugin that looks like it will do some very cool things, giving you some common shortcuts to help with both visual mode, column mode, across regions, searches as well. And then one thing that I often find that comes up is like with those SQL statements is I may have a list of IDs, and so I may have like a default, like a integer of 1 that gets copied 50 times. But what I really want is 1, 2, 3, 4, ... 50. And so there are some plugins and ways of doing that, and this plugin here will help produce increasing and decreasing. What's great is it does numbers, dates, and day names as well. And if you're looking through the docs here, it looks like it actually does stuff like... So here's it doing dates, and it's incrementing the day for you. And then down here, it actually works with things like the Roman numerals as well. So, you know, very cool kind of idea. I actually haven't used this a lot. Normally, if I have to go that far, I'll end up going out and doing a quick Python script. I mean, usually it's just a few lines. But, you know, just in case you need this kind of stuff, I want you to be aware that it's out here. And since we're talking about doing a lot of finding and replacing, because really what visual mode is doing is it's giving us a selection in order to do something. And 90% of the time I find I'm doing, you know, some kind of find and replace operation on it. This screencast from Derek Wyatt, which I had just run into the other day following some links from Reddit, uses find and replace in a very, very awesome way where he goes through and turns this XML document into a nice short bullet list that's clean and easy to read, using about a dozen different, you know, find, replace operation kind of things going on. So definitely check this this one out, and this will give you some other ideas on, you know, things you can do within visual mode and just do within Vim as it is. So I think that's going to bring this one up. Let's just keep it short and sweet. I'll have the show notes with the links to these pages here, and keep on having fun with Vim, guys. Talk to you later on.